that it's come together and that he's with us tonight. Sensei Enfield, we're going to get to some introductions in a little bit, but we always like to start with just a good broad question we can all jump into. And given what we're going to get into in the introductions, but the depth of time you've spent in classical martial arts, including in the birthplace, Okinawa, Japan, I'd just like to start by asking, what do you think is the most misunderstood concept in traditional martial arts today?
Oh, start with the easy question.
We're just layering it in with the simple stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can only speak from my own experience. I think one of the most understood things now is that traditional martial arts are not effective. That seems to be something that's talked about a lot, especially if you spend any time online. And I think that's because we spend a lot of time practicing kata, and the kata, even by people who practice kata, it's quite easy to misunderstand what we're doing. So I think if I had to pick one thing, I think it's kata that is probably the most misunderstood element of traditional martial arts.
Well, so it's funny because I do have a follow-up question about kata, but let's break that open. What do you think is misunderstood about kata? When, to somebody who might be glancing at this show on YouTube and they're like, well, I don't fucking get kata, so what's the deal? What are people missing?
Well, there's a couple of things. One thing is that kata is considered a solo exercise.
Mm.
So it's considered an exercise that you go to the dojo, you practice it by yourself, you try to polish your movements, understand the movements, get faster, get stronger, have better form. And we teach that way. Obviously, those are important aspects of kata, is to develop physically. But it has to be done, in my estimation, it has to be done simultaneously with an understanding, at least some level of understanding of why you're doing the movements and how they apply when you stick another person in front of you. I think that's probably the most difficult thing. What tends to happen, and happened to me, even for many, many years, is that we practice kata, we get better and better and better at the movements themselves, but we still don't really have an understanding, at least an effective understanding of how those movements might apply, or what it is we're doing. We have quite a big online presence, and people come on and comment on our content and things like that. And I remember recently there was some discussion about what's the best way to master kata or something. And my opinion is that the mistake we make is that we're actually trying to master kata, because when people think about that, they think about someone, again, just trying to perfect the movement by themselves. And I think when that becomes the overriding goal, is to have a really pretty nice strong kata, then it's very easy for the original intent of the kata to get lost. And I'm not knocking people who do that, because I think especially today there's tremendous athletes who do that, and I think that's great, and it should be part of the training. But I think that is something that everyone should focus on.
And then has your understanding of that changed over time? Is that something you started in one place, and then was there any single moment, or how did that evolution happen for you?
Well, I got to say that for me personally, so I grew up in the UK. I'm from the UK, although I don't live there anymore. And when I first started training, I started training in sorry, my dog started barking. I started training in a Chinese martial art called Lau Gar. And the club was run by a very, very skillful practitioner who was a full contact kickboxing champion, even though he was doing this kung fu stuff. And we would have to learn the sets, the kata, for each grading. And even then, I always thought, well, why are we practicing these movements, but then we're not learning what they're for? So even then, we'd be sparring or something, and I'd try to do a movement. So it's something that's always interested me. But I would say that through the years of my training, once I got into karate and Okinawan karate, the way the kata were applied was always rather static. So you'd have set attacks. You know, someone comes in with a punch, bam, and then we've all seen it. They freeze, and then we do 2 or 3 things while they're frozen. Nothing wrong with that, but there has to be a progression. And I think even very high-ranked practitioners are just getting better at doing the static bunkai. So I think that's something that actually that's a big part of what we teach when we teach seminars and that type of thing.
Right on. I really appreciate that. We're going to go around the horn on this one. Sensei Suino, what do you think is the most misunderstood concept in traditional martial arts?
Well, I dare say that the combative applications of kata are very important and often misunderstood. I'm also going to say that the mysticism of the martial arts is the misunderstanding of the martial arts. In other words, uh, 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 people who think that martial arts is magic. I think there's still, we don't see them because we're in it all the time and we're a lot more practical. But I think a huge swath of the public still thinks one of two things. A, that martial arts is magic and you get to a certain point and you can do superhuman things without all the work involved. Or they think we think it's magic and it's a bunch of hocus pocus.
Ah,
Both are wrong, right? Well, listen, present company included in that, but I think there's a lot of people that just don't understand the fact that martial arts is a real practical thing that requires lots of work, and the better your tradition, the harder your work, the clearer-eyed your view of reality is, the more likely it is to fulfill the promises that it makes. But it's not mysticism.
I love that. And I'm going to keep that sentence you said in mind. It's that they think we think it's magic. I
Right.
love that. Sensei Ofan, what do you think is the most misunderstood concept in traditional martial arts, or if you want to address specifically karate?
I think it's the value of repetitive actions and how you grow from doing similar things over and not different things, right? So if we're talking about, I don't know, practical, let's say practical is, I hate these labels, practical, classical, um, but let's say MMA, practical fighting, right? That's still, those things are a martial artist pitted against another martial artist. Let's be honest, right? Martial arts was developed, karate specifically, not to combat another martial artist, to combat an untrained person. That's the way I like to think about it. And by repeating something over and over again. So I will give you an analogy. If I paint the wall gets thicker, but you can't see that it got thicker. And then if I paint it again the next day with the same color paint, it gets thicker. And if I keep painting it over and over again, it gets thicker and thicker and stronger and thicker and thicker. And I think when we come in and we do our basics and we do our kata, not statically, but I just want to say that, not statically, and we do our jukumite and we repeat these behaviors over a long periods of time, that's what changes your mind. That's what changes your body. That's what changes you as a human being. That's what makes you better is by doing that. If you just do something different every day, okay, there's some benefit in that, but you're not going to grow in any one area. So, and I really like what you said, Sensei Enfield, about kata. Static kata is great. I love to go in by myself and do all of my katas and work on those for the way they develop my mind and my body. But I also like doing things chaotically with students. And I'm sure all of us have watched UFC fights of late and said, oh, that's a move out of Nahanchi. That guy just, he doesn't know he did a move out of the Nahanchi kata, but he just did a move out of the Nahanchi kata. Oh, that's Kusenku. Oh, that's Seiyunshin. Oh, that's Seipai. We all can see the moves over and over again. They just don't realize that they're doing classical martial arts. They're doing it. They just don't realize that they are.
Thanks, Sensei Ofan. Hanshi Legacy, what do you think is the most misunderstood concept in classical martial arts out in the world today?
Well, it's just simply that kata is worthless. Like, you speak to some people who are not really well learned in the martial arts. They just want to be fighters. So the passing on of tradition, I'd have to say. Like when we do our katas, say from Matsumura in our style, from Matsumura to myself, all the masters in between have added their particular flavor to it. So you're not just learning Matsumura stuff. It's kept modern through a certain linear or a line of senseis, right? So that, to me, that's a big thing. Because, you know, kata basically is a teaching tool that we learn about our weaknesses and our strengths just by doing it. You know what you're good at, you know what you're not good at. You need to maybe practice your kicks, etc. And you correct your use of the techniques, say like a simple punch, that you start using your hips. You're not just wailing your arms around. And calming your mind. When you get in a fight, then you have to fight somebody bigger and scarier than you. When you do kata, it's like non-stationary meditation. So you're going to, while you're doing your kata, you're going to teach while you're acting to calm your mind so that you can actually see what the other person is doing instead of panicking inside. And kata is a teaching tool. I have this thing that I made up that I say when you're teaching kata, you should teach the history, the basics, the basic techniques, the schematics of why it's done in a certain way, bunkai, the self-defense aspect of it, and then the lessons like when you're shifting your weight, if you're 180-pound person like I am, and I just hit them without dropping my weight, I'll hit them like a 180-pound person. Or if somebody grabs my wrist and I can't out-muscle them, if I transfer my weight to my wrist, then I can do it like a 220-pound person. So kata is a great teaching tool. If somebody pushes that aside, they're absolutely misunderstanding martial arts. Big mistake.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Enfield, is there anything since you started with that topic that anything we said or anything you want to add or break open there at all?
Yeah, well, yes, there is actually. And I appreciate what everyone was saying. I really like listening to the thoughts of other experienced martial artists. Yeah, so I think in general, getting back to misunderstandings about traditional martial arts, I mean, particularly the Japanese, they love to break things down, whether it's martial arts or anything else, into the fundamental parts. And so we can see that, you know, in the teaching. So we might learn a high block, and it's like this hand has to do that, and that hand has to do that. But kata's the same. If you think about it, it's quite funny. It's quite a funny thing, kata, because every time you do a movement, I did learn my Hanshi once upon a time, but I'm not sure I can remember it, so I'm going to have to use GKCollege kata as an example. And every time I do a movement, I achieve the position, and then I freeze. And it's like, well, and then it's like, okay, so why do we freeze? You know, what's the point of freezing in that position? Well, it's to emphasize a certain aspect of the technique. Just make sure we've got the correct posture, structure, we're looking in the right direction, we're standing correctly, we're connected to the floor. So once we freeze, it's like, we go for the next movement, we freeze again. Well, you're never gonna do that if you're actually applying that. It's all gonna be one movement, right? So I think that is also another part of kata, which often gets misunderstood. And the thing is because you do the kata like that, people think you're supposed to apply it like that. And that's where all these things come from, going, bang, we freeze, bang, we punch, I attack, boom, I freeze. You know, so I think understanding why kata is the way it is and putting it in a cultural context, I think can also to help dispel, you know, this idea that kata is not useful or it's useless, as a lot of people say that. So I think you know, and also noted on the mysticism thing, I agree with that, because you get all kinds of crazy things happening. But honestly, I think for me, if I didn't have that idea that karate was mystical, I probably wouldn't have started as a teenager. It's like, so it does serve some purpose. It did for me anyway. And I know a lot of people my age, probably the same thing, because karate wasn't as well, martial arts weren't in the media the way they are now. It wasn't like in your face with UFC and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, mysticism's a fun part of it, but yeah, it's not, there's nothing mystical about it, in my opinion.
Sensei Dauphin, I can't remember exactly how you say it, but it's something along the lines of, let people believe in Santa Claus for as long as they need.
Yeah, I say that to my instructors. I don't like them, especially if there's youth in the class or white and yellow belts, to break into the details of the history too much, right? Like, don't talk about Miyagi Chojun wiping his own butt, right? Because people don't want to hear about that. They want to believe that when he went to the bathroom, it just was clean and it didn't smell, right? Um, let those junior peoples be inspired by the mysticism in those stories, because that's going to carry them forward, right? But then at a certain point, you got to break out of that and say, yeah, Matsumura pulled his pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us, and he had the same musculature and physicality and all the science applied to him the same way the science applies to us today.
Yeah, right on. Hello, everybody. Like I said, I'm Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts of Punch Kick Choke Chat. Honestly, we could keep going on that topic for the whole night, but we want to get into Sensei Paul Enfield's story. Now, before we start to get into our introductions, if you're watching on YouTube, either live or you're in the asynchronous mode where you're seeing us later, please hit subscribe, like. Same with the podcast. We're so grateful you're here. We want you to get in that traffic, argue or agree with each other in the comments. But if you're here with us on the Zoom channel tonight, you get to be a part of this living history, because at the bottom there's a chat button, and if you fire a question and it's in and around the topic we're discussing or directly for Sensei Enfield, then we're going to make that a part of our show, and we're really happy you're here to do that with us. One of my privileges every week is to just introduce Sensei Randy Dauphin, Sensei Nicholas Suino, and Hanshi Gary Legacy, three men who I look up to, who I've spent years trying to emulate physically, in terms of character, in terms of fortitude, and all those sorts of things. But, you know, I get to see them in a week and a half. We're doing Capital Conquest, and I always just like to talk about where we're going to see each other next, what we get to do, and we're going to do some training there. So I'm just going to leave it at that for tonight, because I want to spend as much time as possible with our guests. So I'm going to throw it to you, Sensei Dauphin, for our intro of him.
Thanks. I got some disappointing news for you, Sean. Says Suino is going to be blasting elk in Colorado.
Oh, I got a vibe from his face. I was literally going to be like, Sensei Suino, I feel like I just effed that one up.
Anyway, I'm excited to introduce Sensei Paul Enfield. Um, I personally have pestered him a little bit to be on the show. It wasn't always the right time, but now is the right time. Things happen in the right time for a reason. So, Sensei Paul Enfield began his study of martial arts in Oxford, England in 1979. He started first, as he already mentioned, in Kung Fu and then Goju-Ryu Karate under Paul Coleman Kyoshi. It was 1984 when he obtained his black belt. And shortly after that, he went off to Okinawa, the birthplace of karate, to study karate full time. Let that sink in, full time, not a different job. He just got to study karate full time. Um, Said Suino likes this because he went to Japan as well and studied martial arts full time as well for a period of time. He remained in Okinawa in Japan for 3 years. He was an uchi-deshi of this little known person, Higaonna Sensei, right? So, and if you don't know who Higaonna Sensei is, like, I don't know, you're probably not a real martial artist. So, anyway, as well, while he was in Asia, he traveled to Korea, Taiwan, China, just to further his research into the martial arts. In 1987, he participated in the first official IOGKF karate organized research trip to Fuhan, China, and the Wushu Association. In 1988, he came to the United States, where he has taught karate ever since, founding the Goju Karate Center in Carlsbad, California in 1992. He and Sean were talking about this before, because Sean, lived in California for a while, so they have that connection. In 1997, Sensei returned to Okinawa to study Goju Karate under another little-known person, Miyazato Sensei Hanshi. At this time, the Goju Karate Center was appointed the San Diego area branch school for Okinawa Goju-Ryu Karate Association. Later, Sensei became a student under Tara Meiji Hanshi and was appointed United States West Coast representative for that organization. While Okinawa Goju-Ryu Karate is Sensei's main area of study, he's like all of us. He studied out, or he's branched out. He studied Tai Chi, as we talked about Kung Fu, and actually he studied a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. So he's even gone down that path. In 2017, Sensei was awarded his eighth degree black belt under another little known name, Hanshi Patrick McCarthy. He's had the who's who. In the same year, he was awarded the International Ryukyu Karate Research Society Instructor of the Year Award. Sensei has translated a bunch of books, also written many martial arts related articles that have been published in the United States and the United Kingdom. And he has about 40 instructional videos that you can get. And I would encourage you to get them. I've been a fan of consuming his content online, and it's very good content. If you're a higher level martial artist, you're going to benefit from it. And if you're not a higher level martial artist, you're still going to benefit from it. Um, so with his wife, Sensei Michelle Enfield, they founded and we'd like to get her on the show too, Sensei. When the
Oh
show's
yeah.
if you want to bother her, we would love to have her on as well. So, with his wife, Sensei Michelle Enfield, they founded the GKC Global. It's an international karate organization. They founded that in 2017, and they currently have member dojos across the globe. We were talking about this before. He comes to Canada quite often to our region. Um, they travel widely teaching international seminars. And this is something that I think people should pay attention to. They also run a robust uchi-deshi live-in program where if you don't know what an uchi-deshi is, it's where you actually go live in the place and train with the people. And I think that's really cool. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit. For myself, I've already said it. I watch a lot of Enfield Sensei's videos. I really like his bunkai and his application. I like the way he instructs. He's very charismatic instructor. Um, I don't know if he's his wife's right hand person or she is his, but they do it together and they do that really well together. Very, very well. Um, and I've never actually, we have many friends who have trained with Sensei Enfield. Everybody speaks extremely highly of him and his technique, the way he teaches and the way he trains. And I'm super excited to have you on here today, Sensei Enfield. So thank you so much for coming on. Can't wait to get into this conversation.
That's very kind of you, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sensei Do. So let's get to you, Sensei Enfield. What was it like for you growing up, and what brought you into your first martial arts environment?
Yeah, well, okay. So I grew up well, I was born a Yorkshireman, but I grew up in Oxford, which is southern, it's like a university town in the UK, in England. And I suppose from quite an early age, but especially as
Oops.
like karate and breaking bricks and kung fu and all this kind of stuff. And that was about the time that Bruce Lee was, coming on the scene, and the kung fu series, David Carradine and the kung fu series. And so, all of that, had an influence on me. And so I was looking to start martial arts as a teenager, but at that time there wasn't any. There's nothing in the yellow pages. Yellow pages of the big thick telephone book where you'd find business and things. I couldn't find any martial arts, and so then one day I was probably 16 or so. I open up our local newspaper, and I see this tiny little box ad for kung fu classes. And I'm thinking, wow, this is the first actual sort of organized class I've seen anywhere. And having watched Kung Fu, the series, and leaving the temple and all that kind of thing, I thought, well, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this. I want to go along. And I called the phone number, arranged to go. And, in my head, as a sort of 16-year-old, I was like, oh, I know what we're going to do. The first year of training is going to be sitting, meditating. That was what I thought.
And
Watching,
you wanted to do it knowing it would be that at that age.
Yeah, and I'm thinking this, that's in my head. So anyway, the class was about 10 miles from my house, and we used to cycle everywhere. So I got on my bike, I cycled to the class, and found it was in like a church hall. A lot of the martial arts classes are in church halls, still are in the UK. And I went in, saw the guys practicing, and everyone's kicking, punching, standing in lines, doing things. And I immediately just strolled onto the floor while class was going on, not knowing anything, to introduce myself to the instructor. And he just told me to get off the floor in my shoes. But anyway, which I'm sure you've had people do too, right? People come in the dojo, they don't know. So, so anyway, I started going there. Next time I came back, got my black Kung Fu uniform, and started training there twice a week. And it was 10 miles, so I'd have to set off on my bike 10 miles, do the training, come back 10 miles, and I loved it. It was fantastic, and I really liked it. And I a lot of the training was, we did some of the forms, we did some crazy exercises, which now I know are just dangerous. People.
What kind of stuff?
Well, I'm sorry if any of you still do this, but the whole class lay down on their back. They're all laying down on their back, like next to each other. You lift your legs off the air, lift your legs in the air so your belly's tight, and each student takes it in turns to run across the belly. Well, you've got people who weigh 100 pounds and you've got people who weigh 250 pounds. And not everyone's accurate because they're losing balance as they're going across. So, it was crazy, but we did kind of things like that.
Okay, I'm going to strike that from my curriculum.
Yeah, and you'd be. It was a lot of young guys. Mostly, it was young guys. My age or a bit older, a bit younger. And you'd have to stand in line, wait for an exercise, and the instructor would suddenly side kick you in the belly and just knock you over. And it was that kind of era, right? And you had to be ready. You had to be ready even if you're just standing in line. And that was kind of the way it was. So I enjoyed that. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Most of the training, I would say, was sparring based because the guy was a kickboxer. But we did some of the forms and those crazy exercises. It was great.
I'm going to take the running across the stomach out, but I'm going to add in the side kicking people in the stomach while they're in line. It just sounds fun for me.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You don't know if it's just fun for them or they're doing it, if they really believe in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Sensei, before we move on to your time transitioning to Goju-Ryu and what precipitated that, did you find what you were looking for in the sense of the movies and what we talked about, the mysticism? I mean, were you disillusioned or were you like, oh my God, I did find it?
Yeah, well, no, I loved the training because we were learning all the kicks and, hook kicks, moshigeri, all these different types of kicks, jump kicks. What was interesting was that, I was a relatively new student, but some of the students had been there a while. And there's a couple in particular who I remember who were really inspiring to me. And they were both very talented in different ways. And one he was kind of a big guy, and he was just so strong and powerful, but he was really gentle and had really good control. So they were fun to spar with because they didn't just try and beat you up. And there was another guy, a smaller guy, who had obviously taken the sort of Chinese martial arts concept, the animal styles, because Lau Gar, which was the style I practiced, wasn't really an animal style, although probably it was based on it. But this guy would practice, when he was sparring, he would do snake style. or eagle style, whatever it was. But he made it work. He was so skillful. So that kind of inspired me, and I suppose in some ways seeing that, I think I did temporarily find what I was looking for. And I don't know if you want me to talk about why I switched or anything, but
if you wish, I'd love to know and what that path was.
well, so I was doing this kung fu twice a week, and I went to just some social life. I went to the pub or something. I was probably too young, but I went anyway, and met a friend of a friend who started talking about karate. He said he did karate, and so we had something in common. So we talked a little bit about it, and he said, "Well, you should come down and come try a class, a karate class." And so I did, and the karate class was much closer to where I was. It was about a mile from my house instead of 10 miles. So, but the karate and the kung fu were on the same night. The kung fu was kind of early; it was like 5 to 6. It was only an hour, and the karate was 7 to 9. And so, basically, what I did is I cycled to my kung fu class, did the workout, cycled back to the karate. And I'll tell you about my first class. I got there a little bit early in my black kung fu suit. I'd already called the instructor to say I was coming to arrange it. So I got there maybe 20 minutes early, and I walk up. This was another church hall. I walk up the steps, go in the church hall, and I see a lot of people just warming up, stretching, doing kata or whatever. So I sat down on the floor, just waiting for the instructor, just doing a little bit of stretching. And as I was sitting there, this is my first class, mind you. As I was sitting there, this sort of big, burly Irish brown belt comes up to me and he says, in a very nice way, he said, "Would you like to do a bit of light sparring before class starts?" And I'm thought, sure, why not? And so we get up, and for the next about 15 minutes, he just proceeds to beat me up, knock me all over the place. And then class started. And it's funny, but at that age, I didn't think anything of it. That that's just the way things were. Just like with the guys running across your belly, that's just the way things were. And so we did the class, and so for a few months, I would cycle to the kung fu 10 miles, cycle back about 9 miles, take the karate class, go home. And then, but the instructor who was teaching the Goju-Ryu, it was Goju-Ryu Karate, I liked his approach because he wouldn't teach anything that he didn't explain. So when we did kata, you would then learn the reason for doing it, even if it wasn't, the most technologically advanced application, whatever. You'd learn, okay, why are you doing this movement, following up with that movement? You'd learn it on another person, so you were almost immediately learn the application to the kata movement. And I really liked that approach. And this was Paul Coleman. The late Paul Coleman. He unfortunately passed away recently. But he was tremendously charismatic. He was funny. He was very skillful. He was a great communicator, and I started to really like what he was doing, and I was still happy to do both. But the reason I switched, and I probably would have done eventually anyway, the reason it happened when it did is because I was visiting a friend in London who was at university there, so I just went up for to stay the night and have go to a party or something. I can't remember what it was. And we were walking late at night looking for where this party was, as teenagers do. And as I was walking along the street, someone knifed me in the back. And I never even saw the guy. Came in, knifed me in the back. I got a whole story I can tell about this too, but anyway, the point is I got knifed in the back and almost died, and had to recuperate for probably 6 weeks or something, because I had to have thoracic surgery where they went in through the back, they cut me open there to stop the bleeding. So it's quite painful. But when I came back, it kind of changed my, in a strange way, it sort of focused me a little bit. And I thought, well, I did go back to the Kung Fu class, but I thought, no, I just need to focus on one thing. And when I told my karate instructor, Paul, what had happened, he had a funny reaction. He goes, he didn't feel sorry. He didn't act like he was feeling sorry for me and, oh, how terrible. He just goes, oh, so you had an argument with some cutlery, did you? Okay, let's get on with the training. And it was like that. It was very matter of fact. And I think that's partly because he's used to, he, as well as being a karate guy, he was also he worked on the doors in Oxford. So he knew what real violence was. And so anyway, so after that happened, I did a few more of the Kung Fu classes, and I just decided to focus on the karate, which was the right thing to do for me.
I want to ask you a real quick question that's less about your specific path. I just love the term you used. He knew what real violence was. What is real violence compared to what some people who've not experienced it might think it is?
Oh yeah, I'm not an expert on violence. I don't really get into trouble, although I have experienced violence, marginally. But I think when you're, someone like him, I mean, I have a few main teachers, and if I think about the main teachers I've had the Kung Fu guy who was a full contact kickboxer, and I think him and his friends like to go out and practice. On Friday night or something. It was the stories I heard, which I could believe. And the people like Paul Coleman Kyoshi, who were, they're hard guys. Because he was a hard guy, he had a reputation. But he was a professional when he was a doorman, right? I mean, it's a little bit different from now, where there's cameras everywhere, but still, he was a professional, and so he had to deal with violence on a regular basis. And I'm not judging anyone either way. He had no problem dishing it out if he had to. Yeah. And he was very skillful. And there was one occasion when he used to work at the door in different places. One was quite a nice wine bar, but it would get a little bit rowdy. As it got later and later. And on one occasion, he was inside. And there was some guy mouthing off or doing something or threatening someone else. And Paul was sort of standing, and there was some like a furniture in the way. And Paul just moshi-gave the guy in the head over the chair or whatever was in the way. Not the guy, but that was what they did back then, So I think the thing about real violence, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I think it's that it's unpredictable. It's not. Where's it going to end? Is it going to end with me hurt, injured, crippled, dead, or the other guy? It's very different from full contact sparring, where okay, although bad things happen, usually it's like if I get knocked out, okay, I pretty much know someone's going to take care of me. But in a real altercation, you have no idea what's going to happen. It's so unpredictable, and so you can be the most skillful person in the world, and there's instance of it, and you can still come off worse. Which has obviously happened. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. And talk to us now about this time with Sensei Coleman leading you to go to Okinawa.
Okay, so I decided to dedicate myself to the karate, and I was all in. I was practicing at home. I would go to the park at night if there's no karate class, and then Paul Coleman Sensei. There was me and actually another guy who still trains. I was just a little bit ahead of him, but we were training partners, and we would go to all the courses. We go to London to the courses. We go overseas if there was a gashuku or something like that. We do extra special training on the weekends with Paul Sensei. But I think after training for about 3 years really hard and seriously, there was an event in Scotland, I think it was, and Higaonna Sensei was teaching a Bigashiku there, and I was testing for my Shodan. And so, because Sensei was in Europe, he stayed in Oxford for a couple of days, and he actually stayed at my house. Higaonna Sensei, that is. He stayed at my house overnight, and so that was the first time I actually sort of met him. Because, you know, when you go to seminars with someone like Higaonna Sensei, you could have 400, 1,000 people in the class. And he's not very tall. So if you're one of the junior ranks, you're standing in the back going, blah, blah, blah. You're like wondering who's counting because you can't see over the heads over in front of you. So to have him in my house and actually just talk to him was good. And then, so he stayed the night. And then early in the morning, I hear this knock on my door. And he goes, Paul. He goes, come on, let's go. And so, because he wanted to do some training. So he took me out and I showed him where the local park was, just around the corner from where we lived. And we just did some training. And it was during that time that I said, Sensei, would it be okay if I came to Okinawa? I'd really like to do that. And he said, sure, yeah. And so after I got my Shodan, I started making arrangements to go. And about 6 months later, I ended up going over there.
Sensei Fan, I know you've got, we may as well go right with what you're asking right now and what you want to ask about Sensei Higaonna.
Just thoughts on Higaonna Sensei Enfield. Like, I mean, he's a legend, obviously. I can't believe like you're into your first 5 years of your martial arts journey and you have a person like that staying with you, and then you go to Okinawa to train with him. Just any thoughts you have about him as a human being, his skill level, what he liked to do, how he influenced you. These would be awesome things to document for the show.
Yeah, okay, that's a lot. Well, first of all, for anyone who's met him, he comes across as the kindest, gentlest, very considerate man, and very easy to get along with. And I, for whatever reason, got along with him, you know, well, in the sense that you know how you can sit and talk to people, but you can also sit and be quiet and not feel uncomfortable. You know, so I really like him as a person, and as a teacher, he was fair. I think he was strict, but he wasn't harsh, in the sense that I might as well say we've all seen instructors who their position can easily go to their head, and can basically be borderline abusive in their teaching. And he was the opposite of that. And there were a lot of stories about going to Japan, and you hear it all the time with foreigners, and the foreigners are basically, you know, the gaijin, so the guys, foreigners who go and train in Japan like I did, the gaijin become the punching bags, right, of the seniors. We've all heard the stories, and I know people. That would never happen to a foreigner in his dojo while he was there. Although it might happen when he's not there. It wouldn't happen when he was there. So from that point of view, yeah, he was a very fair, considerate teacher. But, you know, when I trained in England with Paul Coleman Sensei, you know, 2 or 3 days a week, the classes were hard, you know, they were 2 hours, they were hard. But it just does not prepare you for training with Higaonna Sensei at his home dojo. So when I first before I went to Okinawa, I saw that video, the BBC television series, Way of the Warrior. I don't know if you've seen that. It was like 8 sections on a different martial art, like Kalari Payet and Shorinji Kempo and whatever else was on it, Aikido. But there was one on karate, and it was all Higaonna Sensei, or mostly Higaonna Sensei, if I remember correctly. And so when you look at that film, his dojo is packed with people. You know, there's like 30 people in this little dojo all training hard. Well, I thought it was going to be like that. When I went over originally, I thought there's going to be 30 people in the dojo. Well, no, there was like 2 or 3. Sometimes I was the only one there. And so, and the training was just nuts. It was just, in the sense that it was just so long and so intense, and he did everything with you. It wasn't like he's standing there in front, just counting or sitting in the chair. And so that was the first thing. And then, and the other thing is because we were, I was there basically full time. In the mornings would be informal training, and the first thing we do is we go for a run through Naha. And the run was about an hour usually. It wasn't just like a 20-minute jog. You run through for about an hour or so, and then the dojo itself is kind of on a hill, and then you do hill sprints, and then you go in the dojo, and then the morning sessions were informal, so you might work kata, hojundo, different things, and then then you go home, take a little break, and then the evening classes were usually about 3 hours, but they could be 5 hours. You never knew. And it was just nuts as far as the number. Getting back to what you were saying, Randy Sensei, about repetition. It was a repetition. Very, very hard, very demanding. And of course, Okinawa is there's no air conditioning, and it's quite humid and hot.
Let me
I loved it.
And so for 5 hours, what would you be doing? Would that be basics? Would that be fighting? Would it be a series of classes where you'd repeat and start over?
Yeah. So it would depend. I'm not saying that every class was 5 hours. It was usually 3 hours.
Yep.
And periodically he would do an overnight training where you'd start a regular class, which was like, I can't remember, 7 to 10 or whatever it was, or 6 to 9. And then you just continue. And it was repetition of a lot of kihon, like kicking, blocking, punching, moving. One of these marathon sessions, all the students, all like 4 or 5 of us, however many were, couldn't continue after about 1 a.m. So we all leave with his permission, and we go and get some noodles because we're hungry at one of these stands. And then we walk back about 40 minutes later. The lights in the dojo are still on, and he's there by himself. So now it must be 2 a.m. He's there by himself, just doing what we'd been doing before, like kicking, punching, just totally. I mean, I've never seen anyone as I don't want to use the word obsessed, but completely obsessed with what they're doing and completely single-minded in their training. It's just crazy. But that's why he's followed. That's why he inspired so many people. And I do want to say something else about training with him is after I'd been there a couple of months, he would ask me to do things with him, whether it was sparring or sort of ippon kumite type stuff, where he'd say, look, can you just come in with a punch and I'll do something? And to this day, and I've been around a lot of good martial arts, to this day, the only time I've really felt that I might die, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be sensational, but the only time when I felt I'm in a real danger of dying if this guy loses control was with him. It was just the most frightening thing when he comes at you full power and you think, oh my God, I'm glad that I didn't get hit because you literally felt you wouldn't be there. And I've had lots of teachers who I thought, Jesus Christ, I'm getting really hurt here. I might get knocked out, but not, the Ikken Isatsu idea. With him, that was definitely part of his training. Yeah. And scary, really kind of scary, but inspiring too, because you think this is what you can get to. This is the level you can get to if you put in the time.
So I know Sensei Suino wants to get into just the broader concepts of living over there and what that's like. And Sensei Suino, I know you've had those marathon sessions over there as well. So where do you want to take this?
Well, I was just curious, what I mean, it sounds like your life was mostly consumed with training, but what were the things around it? Were you working at all? What were your living circumstances like? Can
Oh
you give
yeah,
us a little environmental information as well?
yeah. So when I originally decided to go to Okinawa to train with Sensei, I allotted 3 months to do it. So I was going to go for 3 months and then come back. So I had, more or less calculated how much money I was going to need, got my airfare, and we had travelers checks back then. Bring my travelers checks with me.
Yep.
And so when I first arrived, so the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, I stayed in a minshuku, and a minshuku is kind of like a hostel, but it's for locals. So for people who are like traveling construction workers who need to live there for a period of time, and essentially you get a room with about a 5 or 6 tatami room. So they measure Japanese rooms, traditional rooms, by how many tatamis fit in there. So it's about a 5 or 6 tatami room, add just a thin futon on the floor, no furniture. And it had a bath house or a bathroom, which is like a mini bathhouse in the minshuku, in the lodge, where you could have the sort of traditional, you sit in a deep bath, wash yourself. Well, you wash yourself, then you get in it, and so that was my living quarters for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then all the food was completely foreign to me, and the language was foreign. I thought I spoke some Japanese because I thought I could say ichi, san, shigo. I thought I could say karate, but in England we say karate, or actually that's probably not how we say it. That's in America now. But you say it in a way, you say karate, and a Japanese person who doesn't have the context will not understand what you're saying. They're like, what? And so even the word karate or karate, I could not say, and so I was like, oh shoot, I can't even communicate what I'm doing here. Like the word I thought I knew, I didn't. So the language was a bit funny in the beginning, and then the food was completely different. No cereal for breakfast or toast or anything like that. So I think I ate raw fish for the first time there. But fortunately, I liked it right from the beginning. So I like the food, and of course, all the eating was eating out because I didn't have a kitchen or anything like that. But Sensei and his family were quite helpful in the beginning. So it wasn't like I was just on my own. Anyway, after that initial period living in that lodge, I met actually an Israeli guy who was also training at the dojo periodically. He was basically a traveler, but he'd stopped in Okinawa and had started training. And he was living just down the street from the dojo in a little, I'm going to call it a slum area. I mean, it wasn't slum as in dirty, just it was basically huts. It was like wooden huts with no, I think it had like a cold water tap in there and a sink. There no glass in the windows. You just had a wooden flap you could open or close. And so he said, you should come and stay with me. And so that's what I did until the rest of my time in Okinawa. I would stay in this little hut thing. Sometimes there were 2 of us, sometimes another guy would stay there. There were rats in there, big spiders. There was no bathroom. You had to go to the hole in the ground down the street.
I just lost my wife, Sensei Enfield. When he said big spiders, she just dropped off. Just like that.
Yeah, big spider. I mean, really big. I mean, maybe not Australia big, but big spider. And then at a certain time of year, you get all the cockroaches sprout wings. Maybe they're not cockroaches, but they sort of fly, hit you in the head. And because you don't have glass on the window, you got the choice either close the window or open it. What do you want? And no air or air and bugs coming in. But then the good thing was it was right by the dojo, and the other thing was there was no shower in there. And of course, you're training all the time, so you do want to keep clean. And so we go to the local bath house, which was a completely new thing to me too. And that it's a public bathhouse where people go to bathe, because most people don't have showers in their home, or some people just like it as it's a social thing, as part of being part of the community. And the bathhouses are interesting too, because as a foreigner, if no one tells you what to do, you tend to just soap yourself up, jump in the thing, and that is exactly what you don't do. I mean, it was very eye-opening. And as I started to pick up Japanese phrases, things got easier and easier. But as far as I said, I'd saved money for 3 months. By the end of 3 months, I had $100 left, but I didn't want to go home. I wanted to stay longer. And coincidentally, Higaonna Sensei was married to his wife was American. Which is another whole story in itself. She had an aerobics gym in the center of Naha, which was just so popular. It was like, forget Higaonna Sensei. Everyone's like, oh, Alana, the sort of aerobics sensei. It's so popular. When Sensei had like 2 or 3 students, this world famous teacher. It was a real irony. Anyway, well, I can't speak for her, but basically they decided to move to Tokyo, so he could maybe have more people come and train with him. So at that time, when he mentioned that, I'm going to follow it. I'm just going to go with him. And so that's how I ended up leaving Okinawa. I was following him. But the issue was that I had no money at that time. I was out of money. So my Israeli friend, he was traveling. A lot of these guys, they were traveling all over the world. But as they travel, they find ways to make money, to make a living, so they can support their travel. And what he was doing was, at that time, he was selling things on the street, usually on like a Friday or Saturday evening for a couple of hours. And he said, well, why don't you come do that with me? And so we did that. We would set up a little blanket in a sort of part of downtown, and put our wares, which were they're basically like sort of metallic photographs, which would sparkle at night. Put them on the ground, and people just come and buy them, and you make quite a lot of money in a couple of hours, or enough to support our meager lifestyle for training. And that's what I did initially. But then when I went to Tokyo, I started to meet other people, and I found that I could get a job teaching English. So I started teaching English once or twice a week. And even though I had no qualification, but at that time, a lot of the foreigners at that time, particularly in Tokyo, even if English wasn't your first language, you'd be teaching.
Sure.
Go out teaching English. So it was good. It was a way to make money. I didn't have to work very much, so I could focus on the training.
Right on. Hanshi Legacy, I know you have a question for Sensei Enfield.
Yeah. Higaonna Sensei, that wasn't Kanryo Higaonna, was it?
No. So
what is his relationship to Miyagi Chojun?
Are you talking about Higaonna Morio Sensei? Yeah, so okay, so Miyagi Chojun Sensei's teacher is Higaonna Kanyo. Higaonna, it's the same last name, but there's no relation. So, well, I mean, there might be way back, but there's no immediate relation. So Higaonna Kanyo is a completely separate family from Higaonna Morio. But that's what you find in Okinawa. A lot. There's so many. There's not that many last names, like family names. So you hear it all the time, like Higa or whatever it is. But Higaonna Kanyo Sensei was the teacher of Chojun Miyagi, and he's the one who supposedly learned some Chinese martial arts, and that's who Miyagi learned from. And then between Miyagi Chojun and Higaonna Morio, there's like a generation, right? So Higaonna Sensei didn't learn directly from Miyagi, but there's the generation here. So in that generation, you have people like the Meibu-kan and Shorei-kan and the Jundo-kan are probably the three main, most well known. And so Higaonna Sensei was part of the Jundo-kan lineage, which is under Eiji Miyazato Sensei, which had a number of different teachers, including the teacher Higaonna Sensei. This is getting confusing. Higaonna Sensei claimed as his teacher, who was Miyagi Anichi, who again has no relation to Miyagi Chojun other than being a student. Now I've totally confused everyone.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say, and that's why I was asking you which Hagahiona, which was sometimes called Hagashiona, right? Am I right there?
Yeah. So you can read it Higashi Onna, Higashi like east, Higashi Onna or Higa Onna, and so because I was Uchideshi with Higaonna Sensei, we've always been doing things together, and even Japanese people would see his name and they go, Mr. Higashi Onna, and he'd always correct him. He'd say, no, it's Higa Onna, the pronunciation, which I thought was quite interesting because, like even today, some people insist that the correct pronunciation is Higashi Onna, using the Higashi. It's the same character, just the way you pronounce it. But for him, that's his name. He'd always correct people, say Higa Onna, and maybe at one time it was pronounced Higashi. I don't know. Higa Onna feels like more of a Okinawan pronunciation.
I used to pronounce my last name different until Sensei Aoshi told me how to pronounce it.
So we're going to jump to a question right now before we get to some other questions. This goes back a little bit, but from Sensei Copeland, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Sensei Enfield, do you think someone who's never been pressure tested could make a good instructor, all things equal?
Well, you got to define what pressure tested is, I suppose. But I think this idea that you have to be, a warrior who survived battle to teach martial arts, I think that's a slippery slope. I don't agree with that. Everyone who trains in martial arts and teaches, everyone has got a different goal. So some people, and I can tell stories about the Jindokan Dojo and how that relates to in this kind of idea, is that you can be a very good technical instructor, and you can teach people how to deliver power, have good reactions, respond to stimuli in the dojo, without ever having got in a fight yourself. If that's what we were talking about, pressure testing. And probably, a lot of instructors are like that. And I think the thing about that is just be straight with your students. If someone comes in and says, look, I'm joining, SEAL Team 6, and I want you to teach me how to decapitate some, it's like you have no idea what they're talking about. You just say, look, I'm teaching a cultural inheritance. All I'm doing is passing this on. If you want to learn that, I might be able to improve you in some ways in the way you deliver technique. But, that's not my area of expertise. Go over there. We should just say that, right? I think everyone has to, I think it's good to experience hard training. If that's what we mean by pressure testing, I think it's probably good to have experienced the different areas of training. So whether that's just how to deliver Kihon technique, basic technique, how to hit things, how to get under pressure in sparring. I think that's good. In addition to formalized exercises. I think ultimately everyone is going to have their own area of expertise. We can't all be the same, and I think it's good we're not.
Sensei Copeland just said he very much appreciates your thoughts. And a question came in from Paul Enfield. And I know you did touch on some of this, but are there any extra challenges you faced as an uchi-deshi that you want to add to, even just making money and finding your way there?
Well, I think, yeah, so, yeah, I think one thing is that in the situation I was as an uchi-deshi, so there's different types of uchi-deshi. Sometimes what happens is, especially if it's a big organization, you go there as uchi-deshi and you stay in the dojo, and maybe they have a room, like JK or somewhere like that. They have rooms. You stay there and you live with the other guys, and then you go through the training, and it's like hard training, do all the training, and you go back there. But with me, it was like I was with Higaonna Sensei, and we're living in the same place. I was like cooking food and things like that, cleaning, all those kind of things, watching TV with him. In fact, discussing everything from martial arts, vital points, different ways of delivering shock, things like that, which I think, because it was me basically living in the same place as him, as opposed to being off in some little room somewhere. I think maybe that experience, I value that. To me, it was very, very valuable, because we could talk about other things. We could talk about things not to do with martial arts. We could watch a funny show and laugh about it. And then I would also drive him around in a little van, drive around to different places. And again, getting back to the very beginning of this discussion about what he's like as a person, if you meet him, he's just a very gentle man, unassuming. But I remember one time there was an event at the Budokan in Tokyo. This one we were in Tokyo. So I went with him. I sort of did everything like that. And we're walking up to the Budo. So the Budokan is this huge structure in Tokyo. And we're walking, up to the Budokan, and you've got all these sort of concrete concourses. And as we're walking, we're not even in the center yet. So we're just walking up to it. And everyone's stopping and bowing to him and all this kind of stuff. And you remember, he's Okinawan, he's not Japanese. So, but all the Japanese are stopping and bowing, and it's like royalty's coming. It was like that. But you meet him, he's so unassuming. And it's almost like he's like, okay, all right, that's enough, as he's sort of coming in. But it was kind of like that being with him. So, yeah.
Sensei Suino, I know you wanted to do a couple more things before we get to our 10 questions.
Yeah, Sensei, I just wanted, if you don't mind, just a couple more things about your time in Tokyo. What years were you there?
I was there from 1985. Well, I think I arrived January 1985, and then I left like December 1988, I think. But I was in Tokyo. I was in Tokyo from what was it? So it will be January, February, March, from about April or May 1985 till the end of 1988 in Tokyo.
What area of Tokyo did you live?
Well, we started in more sort of downtown, because Sensei was looking for a dojo. He had students there still, and so we sort of would teach in different places. So that was in Minami Otsuka, which was kind of more downtown. But then he found this dojo where he could kind of treat it like his Honbu dojo, I suppose. It was an Aikido dojo. It was in a place called Kyoshi, which was a little bit out, more like a suburb. There's still a dojo there today. I think Teruchi Sensei teaches there now.
Suino Sensei is going to Tokyo very shortly to do some intensive karate training in Goju.
Yeah, but we just missed each other. I moved to well, I was living in Yokohama. I moved there in August of 1988, and
all right.
I was there for about 4.5 years. So it's funny to hear that. I love your stories. there's so many echoes of that, right? As a foreigner trying to find your way in martial arts and in Japan at the same time. I can relate to so many of the things you said. Um, I just want to ask one more thing, and then I know we have to get to our 10 questions. Um, did you ever experience homesickness? And did you ever second guess your choices while you were over there?
Yeah, I think probably the first couple of months was the most difficult as far as being homesick, because I was like what I was in my early 20s. I literally had never left home before, so I still live with my mum, and yeah, so I'd say the first couple of months it was a bit, especially when I was living in the Minshiku, the lodge, in the first 3 or 4 weeks, because I was by myself. But once I moved in the other place, and I was making friends, it wasn't so bad. So yeah, I would say just the first couple of months, but I never second guessed. I was just all in. I mean, it was difficult. I mean, obviously there were difficulties, and you did have to sort of think about how you're going to make money and that type of thing. But yeah, I just loved the training, and I Higaonna Sensei, like a father figure, and you sort of, how you put people on a pedestal, you can do no wrong, you hang on every word he says, those kind of things. It was like that, I was like, so all in, yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. All right, right, Sean, I think we better get to those 10 questions.
I think we shall. So this is our 10 questions, and you have 10 minutes to answer them. Sensei Dauphin is going to be working the clock. Now, if you want, you can use all 10 minutes, you can use 2 minutes, but if you run out of 10 minutes on just one question, then that's life. We do ask that you answer impulsively, but we also want you to expand on the questions as you wish if you get excited by any concepts.
You mean I have 10 minutes for each question, or 10 minutes for all 10?
You have 10 minutes for each question. The show tonight is going to go 5 hours. We wish. We actually wish.
Start training it with Higaonna Sensei.
Yeah. No, you have 10 questions for your 10 minutes for your 10 questions.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Well, probably not, but let's go ahead.
All right, Sensei Enfield, what is your favorite martial arts technique?
Oh dear me, favorite martial arts technique. Yeah, well, it changes with time, right? I would say when I was younger, I loved side kick and back kick. So with the thing about a side kick and back kick, it always felt to me like when you sort of smash someone, even accidentally, you punch someone, it feels a bit more personal than kicking someone. So to drop someone with a kick always felt, a little bit kinder than like dropping someone with a punch. But it changes. So well, I'll tell you one thing about the kicking is, on one occasion when I was living in Japan, you have to renew your visa, right? You have to renew your visa. I think it was every 6 months or whatever it was initially. And so what you had to do that, you had to leave the country. And so what I did was I took a ferry with my friend, because he had to do the same thing, to South Korea. And while we were there, we made some contacts with some Taekwondo people, and we did everything we had to do for the visa. But then we spent about a week there, and we had two main contacts. And the first contact, we went to this Taekwondo school. Can't remember where it was now. And they were expecting us, and they put on this demonstration, and there was hundreds of kids. And they did this demonstration, and they were smashing things and breaking things. It was really organized and, very professional. And it was great. They were so kind to do that for a couple of foreigners who basically, were just traveling around, not doing very much. But the second guy was he was a world champion. Yeah, as a lot of these people tend to be. They're world champion and this, that, and the other. Bodyguard to the president or whatever, supposedly. But anyway, so we met him, and it was the exact opposite. Very casual, super nice guy. Took us, took us like we were old friends, and he brought us to his dojo. And whereas the other dojos were polished and professional, this one we start walking to this, it looked like a disused building, just sort of concrete building, like an old car park structure or something. And we go inside, and he takes us up the stairs. There's just sort of, there's no paint on the walls or anything. And we come up into this rather large area, a concrete floor, and there's about 7 or 8 guys like just training there. And it was, I was like, holy crap, what are these guys doing? They were, and of course they're doing lots of kicks and things. And one thing in particular I remember, there was this guy who was quite a tall guy for a Korean. He was taking his belt, not they weren't wearing uniforms, but he took a belt and he tied it as high as he could on this pillar, this concrete pillar that was in the middle of the room. Well, there were many concrete pillars, and he was just jumping up, doing jump spin kicks, like kicking the things of the belt, which must have been, I don't know, as high as he could reach. He was a pretty tall guy, so it must have been at least 7 feet tall, if not more. And he just dung like that. Anyway, so then the guy who invited us, he was very kind. He said, why don't you show me a kata? So I think he's being polite. He's trying to be polite, right? And so I do a kata, my friend does a kata, and he's very complimentary, but I'm thinking he probably thinks we're just like, because we didn't have that much training at that time. And he's very nice though. And then he stops and he says, oh, look, try this technique. And it's a technique where, you advance on your partner, whether it's a punch or whatever, and he does a little hop back. And before you know it, he's spun around and he's kicked you in the gut with his jump back kick. But it lures you in because you think he's retreating, and just as you're coming in, boom, you get hit with that kick because it's so fast turn. So that became one of my favorite techniques. I would use that all the time in the dojo, and it almost always worked on someone who hadn't seen it before, and it would drop people if you didn't pull it. You have to be quite careful. And so that kick in particular, Higaonna Sensei, when he first came to the United States, he made a series of videos with Panther Productions, and it was like Gekisadachi Kata, Hojundo, History, Sanchin Kata, but one of them was Goju-Ryu traditional kicking. Well, he had me demonstrate some of those kicks that I learned in Korea. So much for traditional kind of, and it's in those videos. You can still see it online. And so I think that was probably one of my favorite kicks. And then a little bit later on, I like to do takedowns. Just really simple takedowns, but it all relied on speed. And so through the insane repetition of technique and through the hojundo and that type of thing, I got quite quick. And one of my training partners in Okinawa was Teruchi Sensei, and he's insanely quick. And so you had to sort of match his speed, otherwise you were just compromised every time. So training with him was really helped me work my speed. But you become very fast, and so it's just a real simple takedown. Someone's standing there, you basically charge him with a oizuki type technique, but you're not trying to do oizuki, and you just basically scissor him over, take him over, and boom, they land under you. So I liked that for a while because I found it very effective, and it was very important that you control their guard as you came in, otherwise you get smacked. So I liked that for quite a while. And then what else?
If you like, we could go on to another question. You might be running out your 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's go to another question. Otherwise, I'm going to get carried away with it.
Who's the most influential martial artist in your life? Okay, so yeah, that's
That's a really good question. We can talk about our teachers, and I have all the gratitude in the world for all my teachers. But I think the people who inspire me the most are the people who, despite things that are going on in their lives, or despite physical issues they might have, they just show up to the dojo every day. We have a few students now at our dojo who, for whatever reason, they had to move away, or they can't come to the dojo all the time. And these people, some of them are in Europe. They travel back to the dojo because we have an online portal now. They can keep their training with us. They'll travel back to the dojo from Europe to do like a brown belt test. I had them recently, and things like that. That's what inspires me. It's people who not necessarily devote their whole life to the martial arts, but who do it despite things that go on in their lives.
Who's the most influential martial artist alive today?
Well, I think that's going to depend on your bubble, isn't it? It depends. It's going to depend. Look, yeah, the people or the circles you move in. But I mean, I got to say, really, that people of my age, I think it's got to be Bruce Lee, isn't it? I think even today, you'll say to like a teenager, "Have you heard of Bruce Lee?" Most of them have. And I think, would I be training if it wasn't for him, and what he created and the excitement he created? Probably not. And I know a lot of my friends in my age, or a little bit older, or a little bit younger too, who definitely were inspired to start martial arts because of that. So from that point of view, I think you have to. For me, it would be Bruce Lee.
Thanks, Sensei. That's our 3 questions in 10 minutes. I love that. I actually love that because sometimes people rush, sometimes people dig deep, and it's a real pleasure to have those. And the next time we have you on, we'll get to the other questions, Sensei.
Sorry.
No, please don't be sorry. I'm being in dead earnest here. It's your time, it's your questions, and I really stress that was quite wonderful, and I loved listening to every word. I do want to ask you one thing before we have to do our wind up because time is real. Tell us a little bit about your Uchideshi program with your wife.
Okay, so yeah, all right. So Uchideshi means a living program, so it's basically an intensive training program. But it's modeled along my experience is that when people do Uchideshi with us, they stay in our house. We don't like put you in an Airbnb somewhere and you just come to the dojo. So you stay in our house. You take the dogs for a walk in the morning. We eat breakfast together, eat meals together. We hang out, chat. In addition to the training, we have I don't know if you can see behind me. I have a little dojo here where I teach a lot online, but we also have our home dojo in the garage, and so we'll do our morning training in the garage. And someone who's doing Uchideshi has the responsibility to go in the garage in the morning and start working out and work on things we've been teaching them or things we tell them that we want them to do. And then the more serious the student, the more feedback they get and the more personal training they get. So we love self-starters. And usually people who do Uchideshi, they're not here to be led, they're here to self-start, and then we sort of work with them. We had a guy, we've had quite a few Uchideshi this year. We have a young guy who came out from Denmark, and he first came out for a month. And we limit it to a month first so we get to know people because they are staying in our house. It's like, where's sofas? He's in the garage training. Doesn't matter what day it was. Where's sofas? He's in the garage. He's always in the garage training. And lately he came back early this year, and he's doing an instructor training program now. Stayed with us for 3 months. It's the same thing, just always training, always working. But yeah, so if someone wants to uchi-deshi, they contact us. We'll actually set up a Zoom call if we don't know you, and we'll talk about your goals and tell you about the program, and we'll see if it's going to be a fit or match or not. Not everyone we accept as uchi-deshi. It depends on their background and honestly, just how we get on. Because again, people are living in our house. Oh, and you have to love animals, because if you don't love animals, don't come. And if you're a smoker, don't come.
I love that so much that you got that and that you're giving it back.
Yeah. It's sorry, my little dog's in there. But yeah, so and what was I going to say? Yeah, I mean that's basically the uchi-deshi program. We get people who come every year; they keep coming back, and some people will just come once, and that's enough.
Great. And just for everyone listening, as we wind down the show, where can they find that way to contact you?
Well, you can just contact me on by Facebook Messenger, just my name, Paul Enfield. You can send a email, you refer that way, to info@goju-karatecenter.com. Info@goju-karatecenter.com. If you go on our Facebook page, we have business page, GKCglobal page on Facebook, Instagram, I think, and we'll have all that information. Or contact you guys, and you can put them in touch with me.
Sounds great. We'd be happy.
Actually, we're having an uchi-deshi guy coming in a couple of weeks. He's come from the UK. He's been here for a month. And he's going to be here for 2 weeks this time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sensei. I'd like to say thanks to Robert Schlumsky, to Justin Shea, to Andrei Sadashev, Josh Kitchens, Cristiano Landol, Dridi Guliani, Stavros Stavroulias, and Emily Ruth Driscoll for helping us run the behind the scenes on the show. We wouldn't have a show without their help. So Sensei, what we do to end the show is we're going to go around the horn, starting with Hanshi Legacy, and each one of us is just going to say a little bit about our time together, and then the good night is going to go to you. Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about our conversation tonight?
Yeah, it's a good conversation. It's always good to get insight on living in Okinawa or in Japan. So a lot of people who may intend to go there get some ideas of what you have to do once you get there. Thank you very much for coming on our program, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime.
Thank you, Hanshi. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Suino?
Man, I love this conversation. I know Randy takes copious notes, so he'll have more to say on this, but that section about Higaonna Sensei was priceless. I loved hearing all that information. Thank you so much for that. And of course, as I mentioned, I deeply relate to your experiences over there, having done similar things myself. And it was a real privilege to hear about your journey.
Thank you. Thanks, Sensei.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
Man, Sensei Enfield, I really love this conversation. I liked how we started talking about kata. That was so much fun. I think we're all aligned with that. It was really good to hear your story in England. I like that people should listen to the fact that you rode a bike 10 miles to the dojo, 10 miles back home, then went to a karate class. Like, because so often today we hear people say, oh, the bus route is not, oh, it snowed or whatever. Like, if you want the training, you got to go after it, and you went after it. So it's nice to hear that. You said that's just the way things were. You got beat up by a brown belt on your first night in karate, people running across your stomach. That's just the way things were, right? Like you just accept them in the time, and then later you figure out how to do things different. I really appreciate you sharing with us that that tragedy where you were knifed in the back, but I also like that you said that it focused you, like it focused your direction and what you wanted to do. That's taking your tragedy and turning it into a positive, right? So I don't want to say I'm happy that you got knifed in the back, but I'm really happy with what you did with it, right? Like I'm happy that you took that thing and turned it into something really positive for you. And actually you've turned it into something positive for thousands of people because you focus your direction in a certain way. Um, I sent a private message out to our group chat and said, I think our discussions about Higaonna Sensei were like my favorite, like 25 minutes of this show in the last 6 years. That's I could have just sat here quietly and listened to you talk about that for. I mean, I love karate. I love Okinawa. I love the masters of karate and what they've dedicated their lives to. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's such a rich experience, and I hope in the future people gain from it, and I know that they will. Um, Staying in a hut with, you know, no windows, cockroaches, spiders, rats, because you just wanted to train and you didn't want to go home. Most people wouldn't do that. That's why you're not most people, and that's why you've reached the level that you have. I agree with Sean. I'm really happy you didn't get through all 10 questions. It gives us a reason to have you back here. Can't wait to have you on again. We will for sure. And I want to say thank you for doing that uchi-deshi experience for people. I think it's something that a lot of modern martial artists will never experience. I can say I have experienced it. I've lived in my house with my instructors, and Sensei Legacy's helped me. Like, my father at my an event said once, "Thank you, Sensei Legacy, for helping me to raise my son." Right? That's what my father said to him. So I can relate to your experience. Sensei Legacy never made me sleep in the garage with cockroaches or spiders, but he probably wishes. Yeah, he probably wishes that he did. So thank you so much for coming on, Sensei Enfield, and I would really love to have on again, like for a short or something, a topic-based discussion. I think it would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Sensei, I get to guide so much of the conversation. I just want to say, I straddle two generations. The online digital I'm very engaged in, but I grew up without it. And when you were talking about going over there, it stimulated my imagination, but also my excitement to train with that beginnings of my training in that pre-internet era in mind. And we've talked about this in the past where, people go all the way overseas and now people won't even cross town to go to class because it's raining or there's a train going by. And I just want to say thanks for describing your experience with such great depth. It really got me excited to just shed a lot of the extras and just get back to training tomorrow with what's in front of me. How would you like to say goodnight to our watchers tonight, Sensei?
Well, I do just want to say, because I spent quite a lot of time talking about Higaonna Sensei, and there's a lot more to tell, obviously, too, is I don't want to give the impression that he's the only important teacher I've had, because it feels a bit disingenuous. So, and I'm not going to start talking about all the teachers, but other teachers that made tremendous impression. Paul Coleman Kyoshi, of course, and then Miyazato Ichi Sensei, and then Taira Masaji Sensei. And they all deserve as much time as Higaonna Sensei too. But yeah, to finish, first of all, I really appreciate, I didn't really know what to expect with this podcast, this broadcast, but I really appreciate how accommodating, serious, and generous you all are. It strikes me that martial arts needs more of this, right? It's like we might not have come from exactly the same place, but we, in one sense, we do all come from the same place. And so I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the way you all talk and handle yourselves and are very so thoughtful. I'd like to finish by saying to people, if anyone's interested, is that like today, because of the internet and because a lot of people spend time on martial arts forums, there seems to be pressure that if you're a martial artist, you have to be a certain thing. You have to align with what this person says or that person says. If you've never been in a real fight, you can't be a real martial artist. If you don't do full contact sparring, you can't be a real martial artist. if you're not a BJJ black belt, you can't be real martial arts. I think the thing is that we're all in martial arts for different reasons. And as long as you are in a positive environment and it's serving your needs at that time, that's all you need. If all you want to do is kata, and that's what you love to do, then just do that. If all you want to do is sparring, then just do that. I think this is the thing, is that it's very easy, particularly younger people, to get swayed by people telling them they have to do this. And when people do that, we start to feel we're not enough. But you are enough. We're all enough. Follow your own path and follow your own heart. It's not necessary. Once I start following what someone else thinks I should do, when I start to do that, I cannot be myself anymore. And so we have to follow our own path, be ourselves. And the last thing I want to say is that, getting back to where we started with kata is there for you. It's not for you to be a slave to it. The whole purpose of kata is it's there for the individual who's practicing it. If that makes sense. So don't be a slave to the kata in the sense that you can't figure out. Maybe you don't know the bunkai. You don't know. It doesn't matter. It's there for you. Let it serve you. You're not there to serve it.
Thanks, Sensei. And thank you, Senseis, for co-hosting, and we'll see you all for the next episode.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.